favorite step of the project and the answer to the question I get asked the most. How do you get the design on the side of your tire? So this is one way that I do it. The supplies you're gonna need for this step is your bowl for water and a rag, your outdoor Mod Podge. I like to pour it in a cup. Your brush, your outdoor sealer, along with a sanding block and a brush. It doesn't have to be high quality. We're not doing furniture here. Your fabric, pair of scissors, tape measure, your board with the clamps, and of course your tire. So to prepare for this step, the first thing you're going to do is measure the width of the tire along with the sides. Imagine you're just wrapping the fabric around. So this tire is 28 inches. It gives me a little bit of extra fabric down here just in case for errors. So you're going to cut your fabric, measure it 28 inches wide or whatever your measurement would be. And it's 3 yards long, so it's plenty to wrap around. You really want to get rid of excess fabric because it just gets in the way. So the more you can get it down to size, leave a little bit for error, the better it's going to be to work with. So what you're going to do is we're going to complete this project in sections. So by adding it to the board here, we're going to be able to work the tire and rotate it. We're going to apply Mod Podge, put the fabric down, and then apply Mod Podge again over the top. Then rotate the tire and just keep doing until it's complete. Once that's dry, we're going to flip it flat, do the top, let that dry, flip it over, do the bottom, let that dry. Then we're going to go ahead and cut out where all the holes are. And keep in mind, remember when we pre-drilled those holes for the seat? Well, I marked those with screws. That way when we apply the fabric, we can simply cut around that and those screws will be exposed, so that lets us know where those holes are. If you don't do that, when you go to attach the seat, it's going to be very difficult to find those holes. So you're going to be in a dilemma. So make sure, you know, that you mark those holes. So once that's all done, our Mod Podge is dried, we're going to do a light sanding, apply our coat of urethane, let that dry. I think it's like 4 hours. Make sure you read the can. Another light sanding and apply our final coat of urethane. And that will complete the fabric on the tire. So what I'm going to do when I start this is just zoom in so you can see exactly what I'm doing. I'll speed it up when it's tedious. And I'll explain along the way why I'm doing what I'm doing and some things that I don't do and the reason why. So there you have it. Let's get this fabric on the tire.
So here we go. We've got our Mod Podge in a cup. It's a little thick, so I went ahead and poured some water in it to thin it out just a bit. Our bowl of water, brush, rag, and our fabric. The board with the clamps, the tire hanging on the board with the cushion seat facing out. You just want to be careful of those screws. Now I like that this tire has a center line, so I know right where the center is. I can center my fabric and it's going to cover the sides, and we're just going to be able to roll it around the tire. So let's get started. You're going to want to dip your brush just to get it wet. It helps absorb the Mod Podge better. So we're going to work in sections, putting a coat of Mod Podge on the tread only. We don't need to do the sides, the top or the bottom. I want to stir that up because I got it a little thin. So from side to side, all the tread, and again, break it up in sections. I think this is going to take about 5 spins to get the fabric completely on this tire. So once we have a section complete, and it's whatever you're comfortable with. The Mod Podge doesn't dry too quick, so you could do a larger section if you wanted. We're going to take that fabric and fold it in half so we know where the center is. Take that center and match it up with the line on the tire. Lay the fabric centered over the tire and just smooth it out. And that Mod Podge is like an adhesive, so it's just going to help it stick to it. But what we're going to do is put a coat of Mod Podge over it. Just smooth it out nice. And you want to get a nice, you want to get the fabric wet is what you want to do. I like to pull my fabric out because it makes it smoother. You can use your brush to push some of the fabric down inside the treads if you want to. Some tires I do that if I want the treads to pop out. But again, you can just pull the fabric, go to the edge of the tire. Now, beginner's trick here. You can get some push pins and put them at the edge of the fabric so that when you rotate the tire, the fabric doesn't fall off, because if it's not dry yet, it could fall off. So just get a few push pins, and you can even do it on the sides too if you want to, if that helps you handle the fabric better. I like to roll my fabric up. I need to see where I ended my section. So we're just simply going to repeat this around the whole tire. A layer of Mod Podge, flatten the fabric onto the tire, and then a layer of Mod Podge on top. You want to get a nice coating. Pull it as you go. Again, rotate that tire so you know where you left off with the last layer of Mod Podge. And do this until you get to the end where the fabric meets the fabric. So we're going to do this last section here real quick. Roll the fabric on. Smooth it out. Pull it. You can pull it from the sides. And you can see I have quite a bit of fabric left over here. You can choose to meet the fabric right against the seam, or you can choose to overlap it. I'm going to go ahead and overlap it here. But I want to cut it off because I don't want to have to handle all that fabric. You want to get a really good coat of Mod Podge on the ends. And there's going to be some threads that are going to be frayed, so you're definitely going to want to just Mod Podge those down and run your brush a certain way so that it makes them all smooth and blend in. Again, pull, do the edges, and now it's time to let it dry. And we can do the top and bottom. So here's what we've got. Our fabric wrapped all the way around the tire. It's hard to tell where the seam is because the pattern is so bold. And we can let it dry and start on the top. Okay, we've laid the tire top side up. All of our supplies are ready. So you can see the fabric's loose on the top and the bottom, but adhered to the sides. When you pull back the fabric, you're going to see that we're really going to need to get the Mod Podge down in the crease to fold over. We've got the hole and then the screw that designates the pre-drilled hole. The fabric on the bottom, you're going to want to pull that so that it lays flat. That's going to help you whenever you flip over the tire. There's plenty of fabric to cover that we're going to be able to trim off when we're completely done. Now, once the fabric is folded over and Mod Podged to the sides, remember we've got that hole there and that screw. We're going to just simply take a razor knife or a pair of scissors and cut that hole out so that we can insert our grommets in there. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here we are. We have our Mod Podge and we are ready to wrap our fabric around the sides of the tire. Remember I said how where we wrap it around the corner, we're going to make sure that we have Mod Podge down in there pretty good so that it adheres to the tire really well when it wraps around. So just like the treads, we're going to put a coat of Mod Podge. We want this kind of heavy. because when the fabric wraps around, there's going to be pleats. So we're going to do it in sections, just like we did the tread, but our Mod Podge is going to be a little bit heavier because when we wrap it around, anytime you wrap fabric around a curve, you're going to get pleats. So you see how I'm pulling that? Some of the Mod Podge actually comes through the fabric, which is a good sign because that means we're wetting our fabric with the Mod Podge. Because there are pleats, it just takes a little bit more of the Mod Podge to hold it down. So we want to make sure that we coat it really well. So just follow around the curves. And you'll see the tread design actually coming through here on the sides just because it's adhering to that rubber so well. We're going to go right down to the edge and just kind of pound it down there for it to hold because it's double layered fabric when there's pleats on the end. But we're going all the way to the edge and the seat's going to go up pretty far, so that's going to cover it well. So I'm not worried about the edges here at all. Again, pull the fabric and just work it. And it's going to adhere to it pretty well. This is why I like the short, wide brush for this. It allows you to kind of pound that into a tread and get a good coat on. So you can see close up, see how the pleats are laying pretty flat because of the way we've applied it. And you can see the treads design too because it's so adhered to the tire. The seat's going to go way up there, so we're fine with the extra fabric under there. We'll cut that off later. So let's get back to finishing this edge. You pull the fabric back to see where you stopped, and when you do that on the sides, it kind of undoes what you already did. So it's kind of a very repetitive step, but you know, the 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but that's just how this goes. So again, pulling the fabric, working the Mod Podge with the pleats, making sure the fabric has got a good coat on it, and pulling it towards the center. Now we have a screw there, so we're going to just take the razor knife, cut a little hole, or you can use your scissors. So that way we'll always know where our pre-drilled hole is to attach the seat when we're ready. I love fabrics with a lot of designs in it because it hides so much. If this was like a very light fabric with a really light print, it would still turn out pretty, but it wouldn't hide as much. So as you go along, you just put a nice coat on there, and we're going to go ahead and speed this up because just like the tread, we're going to go all the way around the tire. See how nice that sticks down when you really apply it. Making sure to get the Mod Podge a nice coat down in the crevices. We've got another screw there, and we're just going to work our way all around the tire and repeating our steps. You can see I'm constantly pulling on the fabric, using my brush to push the fabric into the edge, adding a nice coat. You can even pull the fabric and kind of like paint it with the Mod Podge, and then put another coat on it. It just allows those creases to lay flat. So we're working it all the way to the edge, and ta-da, there we have it. That edge is done. We're going to go ahead and push. Make sure that it's laying flat. So you can see all around the edges is nice. It's wrapped right around there. We've got some pleats in there, but they're flat because of the Mod Podge. Now I'm going to go ahead and water down some Mod Podge and just put a nice thin layer over the top. So let's put that thin top coat on to finish it off. Once that is dry, we're going to trim the excess fabric on the inside along the edge, and also cut out the holes where we have for the rope, and we can fill those underneath. Okay, Mod Podge is all dry, and now we want to trim the fabric. We've got our sharp razor knife, and we are going to trim not along the edge, but a little bit higher, just so we can seal it with a coat of Mod Podge afterwards. So since it's dry, there's the holes that we're also going to cut. So since it's dry, we're going to be able to cut it pretty easily. Just pull your fabric out, follow the line along the tire, and then just lift it. I just need to get started here. So just press down on the razor knife, and like I say, just follow. You can, there's actually a line you can follow pretty much on every tire. And this is, by no means do you need to perfect this. I'm going to just speed it up because it's all going to be hidden. So once that's done, you can see where the holes are just by looking at the bottom one, because you know there's one above it. So you're going to simply cut across 1, 2, so that you can just push your fingers down in there and get the fabric to go under, so that we can later on, we can put our grommets in there. We can always trim the fabric underneath if we need to, but we won't have to. So we've got 4 holes, so we're just going to repeat that till all the holes are done. Crisscross, crisscross, crisscross. Turn it over. We're going to do the same thing on this side. And there we go. We're set. A coat of Mod Podge to seal the edges, and we'll be done with this step. Use the Mod Podge at full strength. Do not water it down. And simply take your brush, and if there's any loose fabrics that we just didn't get, you're just going to push that underneath and do it all the way around the tire until you're done. So let's speed this up. I like to wipe the edges off. And then you're going to flip it over and do the other side and let it dry. So let's put on that urethane that's going to give it that weatherproof coat. You're going to need a sanding block to do a light sanding all around the tire, and you're going to want to go with the pleats so you don't pull them up. We're going to speed this up so you can see it's all the way around the tire. Just a light 220 sanding block or a piece of sanding paper to do the entire tire, both sides, and then the tread. Okay, once that's done, we're going to go ahead and get a rag and just simply dust it off. Again, let's speed it up and get that all done. Okay, we're all ready to put on our urethane. I suggest starting at the seam of the tire so you know where to begin and end, although it'll be obvious because of the coat of urethane, but that just gives you a guide. So, just a reminder, we're using outdoor urethane to protect it from the sun, discoloration, and to waterproof it. I want to remind you to read the can. It's got some really important information on there. Your number one thing is going to be ventilation. You can't see it here, but my door is wide open to the outside. I have fresh air coming in. I'm wearing a mask, and those are really important. Also, it's going to take at least 4 hours to dry between coats. I like to leave it a little bit longer, and you're going to do a light sanding in between coats. So make sure you read that can. Anytime you're working with something this strong, you really need to pay attention to it. Again, good ventilation. I've got fresh air flowing. This urethane is pretty strong. You do not need an expensive brush. We're not worried about the brush strokes or the smoothness. We just want to get a nice thin coat. You can see I've done the sides, going with the pleats, and then the tread just going along, just using the same brush stroke as I go. And just like the sanding and the wiping down, we're just going to rotate this tire, which again is why that board and clamps are so handy. It really allows you to handle the tire. And we're going to go ahead and speed this up and put that thin coat of urethane on the entire tire. It really pulls out the colors too. It makes it more vibrant, which I just love. Then once this is done, we're going to get ready to attach that seat, and we're going down the final stretch of our designer swing. So here we go, right back at the seam, our last section to finish. You can just see the glare off the light. Again, 4 hours to dry. Read your label carefully. Thin coat. Don't need an expensive brush. And I am going to show you close up the sheen that this has and how vibrant it looks after that first coat of urethane's on. Allow to dry for 4 hours, then do some light sanding and repeat the process. And then on to the next step.